Hello, everyone. My name is Adam, and I'm on a quest to be the most prolific reviewer of all time, which means I review books, movies, podcasts, plays, whatever. Today, I'm going to review the 2025 film Bugonia. And before I start, I'm going to make it clear that I am going to spoil a lot of things. So if you want to see this film and you want to be surprised by the things that happen in the film, please skip this video. All right, that's my warning. There will be spoilers. And I would say that this film is probably about a 6 out of 10. So I think anything above 5 out of 10 for me is worth watching. You know, like 10 being like you must watch, and then 6 like if you want to, it's okay, you can watch it. All right, so Begonia is based on a film from 2003 from South Korea called Save the Green Planet by Jang Joon-hwan, and it is produced, doesn't matter who it's produced by, it's directed by Longos Lanthinos, and it stars Emma Stone, Jesse Plemons, and Adrian Del B, I guess his name is Del B. So the basic plot of the story is that there are these two guys played by Plemons and Del B, and they believe that there is this. Mostly the Plemons character believes that there is a conspiracy and there are aliens on the planet, and these aliens are from Andromeda, and they have been screwing with the planet because they want to invade. And they believe that Plemons' character believes that um, Emma Stone's character is a basically sort of like an ambassador from the Andromedans to Earth, and they kidnap her and they torture her. Well, Plemons' character does, and the plot continues. So basically, Plemons' mother was the subject of some scientific experiments, and she is in a coma, and the company that made the drugs that put her in the coma is the company that Stone's character is in charge of and she's running. So, and Plemons works for the company, but he works as a guy who ships packages for them. And so he's been like radicalized. And the basic plot of the movie is this kind of trope where the crazy guy who believes in aliens is right, is correct, but I don't think that they do that very well because there's no ambiguity about the fact that he is correct. And that's because, so he believes that she's an alien and she tortures him, he tortures her, and she puts on this like, you know, uh, uh, basically electrocutes her, and it's a level that no human could probably withstand. So he's like, okay, that's weird. And then you have all of these like flashbacks to his mom, and his mom is not just, in a coma. When she takes this drug, she's floating, and he has to put like pins in her to make sure that she doesn't float up in the air. And the movie wants you to believe that he is like crazy and this is his imagination, and he's been the victim of such trauma that this is the result of that. But there's lots of things where Emma Stone's character also kind of gives it away. Like, there's a scene where she discovers that he has murdered 5 other people, and she's like, well, how many were Andromedans? And she says it in a weird way that he doesn't say it in a weird way like that. So that's like another hint. And he's like, two. And she's like, you idiot. So, and then the end of the movie is he blows himself up because he's got like a suicide vest, and his cousin, who's autistic, also blows his head off, and the Emma Stone's character is being taken to the hospital, and everybody's really, really happy. And so she escapes the ambulance, and she basically does what she was telling the crazy guy that she was doing. She has this calculator, and the calculator is supposed to, like, be a device that will communicate to the mothership. So she puts in the code, the correct code, and she goes in the closet and she gets beamed up. And then you have Emma Stone's character being the real empress of the Andromedans, and they have this like giant spaceship, and the world is this flat kind of thing. And she says they have a little bit of a discussion, and she says like the experiment has failed, and what she's talking about is basically like the Andromedans came to Earth, and there was dinosaurs, and they accidentally introduced a disease which killed all of the dinosaurs. So they felt bad that they had ecologically devastated this planet, so they created people in the image of Andromedans, and then those people, this was Atlantis, those people wanted to be stronger than the Andromedans, so they did some genetic engineering and caused a nuclear war, and that's when evolution as we know it starts, right? So basically, people are this scientific experiment. So they do this thing where the Earth is like this model in the center of their ship, and she pops it's a flat Earth model, and she pops the dome that's protecting it. And then this scene is actually really quite intense and eerie. You have all of these people, like these, it's about 10 minutes, maybe 6, 7 minutes of images of people who have kind of raptured, but like they're dead. So people in restaurants, people who are having romantic encounters, people in grocery stores, people on the beach, people in water, people in cars, people in buses. So that's probably the best scene visually in the film. So yeah, I don't think the trope works really well. Because, oh yeah, why doesn't the trope really work really well of the crazy guy who turns out to be correct? Because he gets blown up, and his cousin kills himself, and there's only one other character who might have any kind of suspicion of something, and the crazy guy kills him. So the ending of the movie is not in anybody's imagination. It's really the ending of the movie because there's no characters who could actually imagine it happening. You might say, well, maybe Emma Stone's character is in a coma and she thinks about all of this. But I don't really think that, because we don't really see Emma Stone's perspective until the last Emma Stone's character's perspective until the last part of the film. So I think that's the big problem with this film, is that this trope is not really very effective. Because I think if you want that trope to be effective, there needs to be a question, a doubt in the mind of the audience, like is he really crazy or is it really true? You know. And there are moments in the film where you're like, okay, he's crazy. And there's moments in the film where you're like, oh no, it's true, because for example, he makes this 3D imaging on his computer, which is not something a person of his status should be able to do, I think. And it looks like very accurate and realistic. In the end, it is this ship that he sees, or we see at the end of the movie. And you could say, well, Emma Stone's character saw that ship, right? She saw it when she went into his kind of lair. And then there are parts of the movie that don't make sense, actually. Apart from this failure of the trope. The other part that doesn't make sense is, well, there's two parts that don't make sense mainly, maybe three. So the first part is that, as I said, Plemons, and the actors do a really great job, you know. So the problems of this movie are not the acting, it's like the writing. And it's not even the directing so much, because the directing is good, it's visually interesting. Um, yeah, so Plemons' character, he has been torturing and executing people that he believes are Andromedans. And he has this whole part of his house that uh, is hidden away. And it seems like Delbus's character doesn't know about this. It seems like when they're kidnapping the CEO, it's the first time that they've done this. And he doesn't mention any doubts about previous things. And I think that you could say, well, maybe Delbus's character, because he's autistic, ended up with his cousin because he didn't have anywhere else to go. And his cousin was going on this like weird path. So that's possible, but the movie doesn't make that very clear. So this twist that he's been doing this for a long time doesn't really land as well because we don't have any hints about that in the conversation between Delbus's character and Plemons' character. And I keep referring to the actors and not the characters because I think they are the ones that save this movie. So the other thing that doesn't make sense in the writing of the movie is there is a cop, and the cop appears to be older than Plemons' character, and he keeps referring to this accident or incident that happened when he was a babysitter for Plemons' character, like he was babysitting Plemons' character as a child. And it's hinted that he does some things that are immoral and illegal to Plemons' character, and he feels bad about it, but he's like, I don't know what I was doing. I've never done it with anybody else. I think it was just a power trip. I was a confused young man. And you think, like, what was the point of that, right? Like, I think the point of that in the storytelling is to say that humanity is irredeemable and this is the problem, right? So if we have an irredeemable humanity, then we deserve to die. But the Andromedans who end up being true, they are monitoring what's going on. They don't know about this character at all. So it's just some trauma that's been inflicted upon Teddy, that's Plemons' character. So it has been inflicted upon Teddy, and Teddy has lost his mom to this experiment because his mom actually was addicted to opioids and she wanted to get off, so she signed up for this experiment. So she's been traumatized by his mom, and also there's a little bit of a hint like that Teddy's father went away because of something connected to this character, this older character. Like maybe he tried to attack the older character when he found out what he was doing with his boy, but it's heavily suggested that he's in prison and that Teddy doesn't have a relationship with him anymore. So Teddy has this huge trauma as character. And you could say, okay, the trauma is motivating him to act in such a way, right? So it's motivational, but I don't think that the writing is good enough to explain the other aspects of the film. And the last thing, as I mentioned, as I briefly outlined, is that the Andromedans have been doing this experiment on this Earth, and it's like, is this the real Earth? Because the real Earth, as you know, is not flat. So are they just running some experiment in their ship because they have accidentally, uh, they accidentally wiped out the dinosaurs on the real Earth, and then they're like, okay, well, we'll run this experiment to see what happens. And so the queen, the Empress Andromedon, she comes down to Earth and she runs this very cruel capitalistic organization, and Teddy goes bonkers and a bunch of murderous stuff happens, and she's like, yes, they're irredeemable, it's not going to work. And then they murder all of these sentient beings, like 7 billion sentient beings, because their experiment failed, you know. So that's really, really quite odd. And maybe you could make the argument that they finished the experiment because it was getting clear that the people would be able to figure out what was going on and rebel against them. But I don't know. I don't know. As I said, I don't think that the writing is good enough to support the story, the plot of the story. So the writing has failed, and it kind of feels like it's been written by committee, and that's why you have all of these things that are kind of connected and the main trope doesn't work. Yeah, so I have a question for you. Do you have an example of a movie where there's this trope that the guy you don't quite know if he's crazy or he's telling the truth about, or woman, about the existence of aliens, and it's really, really well done? So I don't have an example of that movie, but if you do, put it in the comments and I'll watch it, and then I can compare and contrast with this. So as I said in the beginning, Bugonia, weird name. I don't think people will see it because of that name, but Bugonia is 6 out of 10. Like, I think you can watch it because there are some interesting performances in it, but it's kind of marketed as a sci-fi comedy, and the sci-fi is not really there and the comedy is not really there also. It's just visually interesting, and the performances are really engaging, especially Emma Stone's performance and Jesse Plemons' performance as Teddy. All right, thank you very much. If you want to support the podcast or the channel, there's a couple things you can do. You can like and subscribe. You can like this video, this particular video, and you can subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to get 200 subscribers by the end of January, and I have 157, I believe. So I think it's completely possible. And if you want to follow me on Spotify, that would be great. Thank you. Bye-bye.